Hör mordu. Shianalaget. What's wrong with these people? Are they alive or are they dead, Jimmy? I think they must be alive. Ladies and gentlemen, it is fantastic to be here at Brilliant Minds. We wish we could be Swedish. We wish. There's so much here that is just so great. And to have Jimmy here in Stockholm is just a great pleasure. And I thought just to set the scene, just to ask you to just imagine something. Imagine that you were from Östersund, and imagine that you love boats and boating. And imagine that your father ran a grocery store, and your mother was a teacher, and you were raised to have a thirst for knowledge and for encyclopedias. The only difference was, this was not Östersund, this was Huntsville, Alabama, in the South of America, where you were raised. So if I could just set the context, just to give those of you... Say that again?
Roll Tide. Like, honestly, no one's going to get this joke.
No one's going to get that joke, but we'll get to that in a minute.
It's from down home, don't worry.
Down home. So let me just set the scene for you to give you some context. Jimmy goes to university. He does 2 degrees. He decides to do a PhD, drops out of that, moves to Chicago, joins a Chicago futures and options company. And throughout this period, he decides he wants to come up with the idea of a portal. He reads an essay by a famous social theorist called The Use of Knowledge, where information is decentralized as a tool for the open source movement, and decides he's going to set up a portal. He starts in 2001, he launches Wikipedia. He then sets up the Wikimedia Foundation. In 2004, he launches Wikia, which is a wiki hosting service. And he then starts to develop this, and basically his entire rationale in setting this up is because his core is reason, individuality, capitalism, and integrity. So this session today is all about integrity. Jimmy, first of all, just thought we'd talk through just a few of Wikipedia's reach. 15 billion page views a month, 7,000 news articles per day, 80,000 unpaid volunteers. And if you wanted to read all the Wikipedia articles in English, it would take you 21 years to read. Jimmy Wales.
And I think thank you. Yeah, I actually think you wouldn't be able to read it all, because we're writing faster than anyone can read.
Huh.
So it's growing by a rate, at least for now, that you could never catch up.
So 15 years on, Wikipedia is really at a whole new junction point, and Sweden features very highly in terms of the Wikipedia audience, right?
Yes, it does. I mean, there's actually something very interesting of all the languages of the world, and we really divide things up by language, not by country, because that's just the way it works with an encyclopedia. The number 1 largest language in Wikipedia in the world is English. That probably wouldn't surprise you. What might surprise you is number 2, which is Swedish language, is the 2nd largest language version of Wikipedia now.
Yes, of course.
People ask me, why is that? And I always say, well, it's because Swedes are so smart and good looking. They only ask me that when I'm in Sweden, and it's a very popular answer. But no, the truth is the Swedes have slightly cheated a bit, but it's a really interesting story. So there's this guy, Sverker Johansson, who has created a bot, and he creates, there was a Wall Street Journal article about him that says on a good day, if he creates 10,000 entries, that's good for him. And basically, he's gathered together a lot of databases, mostly about plants and animals, scientific databases, and he's generating short articles on every species. And so the Swedish Wikipedia was already in the top 10, so it's not that they completely cheated, but they really catapulted above French and German with a bot.
How many articles did he actually, was he responsible for initiating?
I don't know the current number. About a year ago, it was well over 500,000. I think it's well
One
over
individual basically responsible for that?
Yes, he's perhaps, by using this bot, he's probably the most prolific author in the history of the world. But
So this is also emblematic of the fact that you've got citizen journalists that are doing things for Wikipedia in this form, like Sverker is doing here in Sweden, but you banned in China.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we have always taken a very strong stand for freedom of expression. We've never agreed to comply with government censorship anywhere in the world. In China, we've had a mixed history. We were completely banned in China for several years. Then we were open in China for several years. As of this past summer, we got blocked again in China, all language versions. And we're engaged in a dialogue with the Chinese government, but it's actually very difficult. There was a period of time when Wikipedia was broadly accessible in China, but they filtered out certain pages, the pages they didn't like. So Tiananmen Square, or the artist Ai Weiwei, or Liu Xiaobo. Yes, a lot of these kinds of things, sensitive issues within China. But starting last summer, we have now encrypted all access to Wikipedia. So when you visit Wikipedia, it's HTTPS rather than just HTTP. So it's just like when you're at your bank. That means someone who's spying on your connection, they can tell that you're talking to Wikipedia, but they can't see which pages you're reading. Huh. And so the Chinese have lost the policy option of being able to filter certain pages. Huh. Now this is true, by the way, worldwide. And so in many of the places where we used to have filtered access to Wikipedia, they've chosen to just let go. They'd rather not have to do without all of Wikipedia. And so in certain Arabic countries where Wikipedia was previously filtered, it's now uncensored. So this is a positive step. The Chinese, on the other hand, have taken the choice to have no Wikipedia. And that's where we are today. And we can't really go back to the old equilibrium because we're not going to unencrypt so that they can monitor people and filter Wikipedia. So it's a tough one.
But you basically are upholding the integrity of Wikipedia by taking that stand. Have you tried approaching the Chinese government? When Xi Jinping, you sometimes get to see him at some of these things. Can you approach that high level and say, come on, guys?
Oh, yeah. No, I just went in December and I met with the minister, and we had it was a real governmental meeting. So 2 chairs like this with a plant in between, and it was like a summit meeting. But we had a friendly dialogue, but I'm not budging. He's not budging, so there we are.
Okay, next issue we'd like to look at is Edward Snowden. So here's something interesting. Just last week, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General in the United States, was interviewed by David Axelrod, former senior counselor and advisor to President Obama. And Eric Holder said that he gives credit to Snowden for starting the surveillance debate, but he should still be punished because what he did was illegal, although he did perform a public service. What do you make? What's your view of Edward Snowden?
I think he performed an enormous public service. Now, what I always say is I can't give a completely unqualified endorsement of any person. I don't know everything he's done in the past. I don't know what he'll do in the future. But in the main, he's been very, very careful. He has only worked with journalists to release things in a very careful way. He hasn't released anything that put any agents in danger or anything like that. And
even though the American government says that he did.
Yeah, of course they do. But there's no evidence of that. And
right.
Certainly, generally speaking, I mean, when they say things like that, what they mean is he sparked a public debate that has amazingly ramped up demand for encryption. The public really wants a secure internet, and so people have moved very much to using, WhatsApp, very popular chat app, just switched to end-to-end encryption. Telegram's gotten very popular, end-to-end encryption. Websites like Wikipedia are increasingly encrypted. And we're doing that throughout the industry because the public wants it. They want security. And of course, that means the government's not that happy. They used to be able to spy on what everybody was reading in Wikipedia, and now they can't. So.
Well, Eric Holder said that the Espionage Act in the United States doesn't permit a public interest defense. And this is notwithstanding the fact that the NSA typed into the servers of all the major internet companies, including Facebook, Yahoo, Google, Microsoft. This was a big issue, and so your view is that Snowden did serve public interest.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that that aspect of the law, I did not know that, I'm not an expert on the law, that aspect of the law should be changed. That I think he should go to trial. He's clearly broken the law. That's what we do in a civilized society. You go to stand trial. However, he should be able to say, here's why I did it. I was unveiling wrongdoing, illegal acts by the government. That should be a valid defense. Will he win on that? I'm not sure. He might not. But that defense should be available to him. And of course, he's said many times he's happy to come back to stand trial. He just wants certain, he wants to plea bargain. He wants certain guarantees that they're not going to execute him, which is a fairly reasonable request.
Very reasonable.
You know, I'm sure he's not very happy sitting in Russia, but it's better than being dead. So, yeah.
So Sweden's got its own example of something similar, which we'll come to in just a minute. But here's a quote from Bob Marley. You might be interested. Bob Marley, a soothsayer in many respects with his lyrics. The greatness of a man is not how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively, which is what Wikipedia does and what you've been doing your whole career. However, in Sweden, a very, very well-known professor of criminology by the name of Leif Persson, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, who was working for the Swedish National Police Board, he discovered that the former justice minister, Lennart Geijer, was tied to a prostitution ring here in Stockholm. And he got fired by the National Police Board, which then led him to become an author. He's written 16 books. He also researches crimes and so forth. And his latest book, Bombmakaren och hans kvinna. Good book. Jimmy, this Swedish example, how do you read that?
I mean, this is an era when people really demand information. They demand quality information. I think a guy like this is a great hero. To sort of bring out good information. Obviously, he's a popular author too, so that's kind of cool. So.
Yeah, I read 3 books trying to decipher what happened with the Olof Palme assassination.
Yeah.
Very important author.
Yeah, good stuff. And we do live in an era that, despite the trend that we can all decry of clickbait headlines, or in our introduction, sort of the loudest, angriest voices on social media, we also see in the public an enormous demand for quality information, for in-depth information. And actually, at Wikipedia, we're really quite old-fashioned, surprisingly old-fashioned. We are always looking for reliable sources. We don't accept, random things from Twitter is not a valid source for Wikipedia. Blogs
so
are
the
handled
integrity
very
is
carefully.
really sustained at a very serious level.
A very serious level, and it's if you go into the discussion pages of Wikipedia, or you see the community members discussing, it really is all about this. How do we improve the quality? How do we make sure everything in Wikipedia is accurate, neutral, reliable? And obviously, we don't get it right all the time. Nobody does. But for me, it's a really wonderful thing to see that these old-fashioned concepts of the integrity of information still have as much resonance as they ever did. And we see this in the passion that people pour into this.
Now, you mentioned the word clickbait. How many of you here are not familiar with the word clickbait? So we've got a really smart crowd. They know clickbait. They won't be clickbaited.
I'm sure almost everybody has clicked on a headline from typically BuzzFeed. They're very good at it. And then 5 minutes later, as you're clicking through 23 funny cat pictures, you're just like, why am I wasting my life?
That's clickbait.
That's clickbait. It's a very tempting headline, and you click it. Actually, they're getting worse. Recently, I clicked through one, and it was 23 something, celebrity something, and I thought one of them looked interesting. At the beginning, I clicked all the way to the end, and the celebrity who was in the teaser picture wasn't even in the list.
No, that's clickbait.
So I was like, come on, really? You made me click all the way to the end.
So this gives us a good opportunity to talk about Wikia and fandom, because what's happening with truth and with integrity is that moments of truth are no longer managed by brands or by companies or by products. Tell us about Wikia, some of its impact, and fandom, this really fascinating new platform that's taken off like a rocket.
Sure, yeah. So Wikia's traditional thing is encyclopedic, in-depth guides mainly to video games and TV shows. I mean, you can come to Wiki and build a wiki about anything, but those are the most popular. So if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, for example, and you find it really complicated and really hard to follow, you should go to the wiki because it's got a biography of every character, a summary of every episode, and so on and so forth. It's become incredibly popular, 160, 170 million readers every month. And recently we've launched something called Fandom, where the same community of people is now doing original reporting and research, mainly in entertainment and gaming. And one of the things that we see is, these days, who is truly the expert on, let's say, Game of Thrones? Is it really the reviewer for the New York Times? Probably not, because they're reviewing lots of things and they're good at TV reviewing, but the real expert is this group of probably 30, 40 super fans who really discuss it and they're really into it every day, and they make really sure that all the information is very detailed and very accurate. So it's a real shift of power from sort of a handful of broadcast outlets into the people, and it's much better than what we normally think about in this realm, which is just people screaming at each other on Twitter and things like that.
So the new truth really is born by this new cascade of citizen journalists, citizen fans, fandom, Wikia. This is really the new. You're an editor of The Guardian. You're on the board of The Guardian newspaper now.
I'm on the board of The Guardian
that broke
now,
the Snowden and the Julian Assange
Yeah.
stories. You're in a fantastic position to observe all of this.
Yeah. No, it's really fantastic. And I think just to tie it all up, because I see the timer's blinking, they're going to yank us off stage in a minute.
They will.
All of this that happens at Wikipedia, Wikia, is down to a real, genuine community of people who have the power, who are trustworthy because they have the tools to stop bad people from doing bad things. And without that real community, it would all be a huge mess. And so the good news is most people are basically decent. And if you give them an environment and the social cues to do good work, positive work, they will.
So, as Bob Marley said, do the right thing, practice integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Wales.
Right. Very good. One last comment. I usually talk at tech conferences, and one of the great topics we always have is not enough women edit Wikipedia. There's only about, 85% men, and I usually am able to say, so Wikipedia is about 85% men, much like this audience. However, I'm happy to report the entire front row is women.
Yeah.
So
Thank God.
great.
You
Thank
called us out. It's my Harvard women here, front row. I love it.